Chapter 4. Megan clung to Emma, so terrified that for a moment she felt faint. Her ears buzzed, and pinpricks of light flashed before her eyes, blinding her. Megan was so sure the Indian woman wanted her for a few moments. It took a few moments for her to realize that the Indian man on horseback had spoken only one word: food. The Indian woman's gaze moved from Megan to the wagon bed, and Megan sighed with relief, slumping against Emma. The woman had probably been as curious about Megan as Megan had been about the woman's daughter. "We have food for our journey," Ben said. "We'll share what we have with you." The Indians made no sign that they had heard, but Ben handed the reins to Emma, then jumped from the seat and walked to the rear of the wagon. Megan turned to watch him open the hamper Mrs. Parson had packed for them and wrap half the food in a bleached sack. Solemnly, the Indian woman stepped forward and took it. The Indian on horseback waited until Ben had climbed back in the wagon and gave a single nod of his head. He guided his horse to the head of the group, and the others followed behind him. Looking at Jay and Jimbo, Ben gave the reins a flip and moved on. Megan twisted to glance back, wondering if the Indian girl would turn to look at her too. But the Indians went on their way as though the meeting hadn't taken place. "Where had they come from?" Megan whispered, even though she knew the Indians were now too far away to hear her question. If they were Kaws, they might have come from Council Grove, or the government put them on a tract of land. Of course, they could be Osage too. Kaws and Osage look like. They're taller and better formed than some of the people in the other tribes. Other tribes? How many are there? In the Kansas Territory, let's see, there's Pawnee, Cherokee, Wichita. He broke off as he looked down at her. "Don't look so worried, Megan. As I said before, the Indians are people like us. Mostly we try to get along with each other." Megan thought again of the girl with the black eyes. "I'm glad you gave him something to eat," she said. "Speaking of something to eat," Emma announced. "The sun's high, and I'm hungry. I'm sure Megan is too. We're not far from home. Sure you don't want to just keep going?" Megan saw the twinkle in Ben's eyes. He liked to tease the way Daw had. Megan well remembered the twitch of the smile on Daw's face and the way his eyes would sparkle with mischief. Ben guided the wagon off the road, and the three of them soon demolished the rest of the cold meat and bread. As he closed the hamper, Ben glanced sideways at Emma, ducking his head a little. "Nelda had put in 3 apples," he said. "I gave them to the Indians." Megan could thought of the tardiness of an apple, and she could almost feel the spurt of juice in her mouth. She pictured the Indian girl eating her apple and knew that she should feel generous about giving and sharing, but she didn't. She wished that Ben had kept the apples. Emma, however, simply said, "Nelda packed more food than we needed." Ben rested a hand on her shoulder, and the look that passed between them revealed their closeness and contentment with each other. As Emma began to rearrange the hamper and the bundles around it into place again, she sighed. "Times have been harder for Nelda and Will than for us, and they could little spare all this food." Ben patted his stomach. "It went to a good cause." Emma smiled. "We'll make it up to them when they come at Christmas time." Megan walked a few steps from the long grass and stared out at the low hills, the noonday sun warm on her back. She breathed in deeply the pleasant, sour, sweet fragrance of the stems crushed under her feet and realized with surprise that she already felt part of this glowing landscape. She wanted to race across the prairie and fling herself face downward, burrowing into the grasses, hugging the earth from which they grew. "This is the prairie's golden time," Emma said to her. "Later on, in winter, the grasses will die and blackened. But in the spring, new grass will grow and the hills will turn green. There's wild indigo and blue stem. After that, there's bird's foot violets, prairie roses, daisies, purple milkweed, and the birds," she laughed. "They start singing at sunrise. And after the sun has gone down, you'll often hear the mockingbird still trilling as though the day hadn't been long enough to hold a song." "You love the prairie," Megan said. "Yes, I do," Emma answered. "Did you ever live in a city?" "No, I've never known city life. Ben and I both lived on farms in Indiana, but we are married. We didn't have enough money to buy land there, so we came west to the open territory and found a plot of land we knew from the start would be ours." Ben had come up beside them. "Kansas soil is black and rich. If grasses can grow 8 to 10 feet in it, didn't think what corn and wheat can do." He gestured toward the land that lay before him. "Can you picture the prosperous farms as far as the eye can see?" "I can try," Megan said. "But if the hills are covered with farms, then the prairie would be gone." Ben chortled heartily. "Now, Ben," Emma chided. "I don't mind," Megan reassured her. "Sometimes the things I said would make Daw laugh too. He always told me he wasn't laughing at me. He was laughing at the rest of the world, which had no idea what was in store for it when responsible people would finally take over and set things right." Ben stopped and studied her for a moment, and then he smiled and said, "Your pa was right, Megan. And as for this land, I hope there'll be room for both farms and prairie." He turned and headed for the wagon, saying over his shoulder, "Let's get a move on. We want to show this young lady her new home." Megan was delighted when she saw the Browder's house. It was built from logs, and all the cracks between them clocked with clay, and it had a sod-covered roof, as Emma had said. It was much larger than the parson's house. The door in the front overlooked the road, and the back door faced a huge barn with a side overhanging to protect the wagon. Megan remembered Da's pride in the buildings he helped to build, and knew Ben must take great pleasure in this house that he had built with his own hands. She looked at him shyly. "It's a grand house you've made for yourself," she said. Ben grinned at her. "It's your home too now, Megan," he answered. As they climbed down from the wagon, Ben began to unhitch the horses. They were greeted with delirious, joyful barks. Lady, a brown and white dog of mixed breed, half waddled, half ran to lick their fingers, wiggling and whining with pleasure. "She's telling us she missed us," Emma said. Megan could see how friendly Lady was, but she wasn't used to dogs, and she wasn't sure what she should do. As Lady finished greeting Emma and came over carefully to examine her, Megan looked to Emma for guidance. Emma bent to stroke Lady's head. "This is Megan, Lady. You'll want to be her friend," she said to Megan. "Close your fingers, then slowly hold out the back of your hand to Lady." As Megan did, Lady cautiously sniffed her hand. Satisfied, the dog moved forward, and Megan timidly scratched her behind the ears. "She'll accept you now," Emma said, and led Megan into the house. Lady followed. Just as Emma had described, there was a brightly colored quilt on the bed in her room Megan would have for her own. Her window faced the unplowed land that rolled from the river. Megan could see the river a far distance away, bordered with trees and tall, graceful trunks of bright splotches of golden leaves. "Beautiful," Megan whispered. She ached for the familiar, crowded friendliness of New York room, but she was not quite able to believe that this wonderful room would be her own. Megan soon decided, however, that the kitchen was her favorite place. She stood there admiring the wide fireplace and double swinging arms for holding kettles and pots over the embers. There was a small wood-burning stove, its black pipe disappearing through a hole in the roof, and pans and cooking tools galore hanging on the wall beside it. Oh, if Ma were only here to see this wonderful kitchen. A sudden wave of longing for her mother swept over Megan with such force she trembled and reached out for the back of a chair to steady herself. She had to put aside all the wishful thinking and face the truth. She told herself Ma would never see this room. It wasn't likely that she would ever see Ma again. Megan closed her eyes, fighting down the cry that tried to explode from the tight places in her chest. Firmly she pushed back the tears that threatened to come, tucking the pain into a hidden corner of her mind. This was no time to give in to her feelings. There were things to busy herself with. First she would unpack her few clothes and stack them in the drawers of a great chest next to the bed of her room. "Megan!" She turned to see Ben at the open front door. He beckoned to her and said, "Put your coat and come outside. I'm going to meet our new neighbor, Farley Haskell. He's the one who looked after our livestock and property while we were in St. Joe." Megan grabbed her coat from the rack and stood next to the front door and shoved her arms into the sleeves. The breeze was chill, and she pulled the coat snugly around her and followed Ben outside. Farley, a short, stocky, balding man, rubbed his hands on the seat of his overalls as Megan approached and shook her hand. "Mighty pleased to make your acquaintance," he mumbled, and Megan was surprised to perceive that he was shy as she was. "It's nice to have a child in these parts," he said. "Nearest family with children's 3 miles southwest." Megan realized she'd been counting on some neighbors nearby to have children she could take care of and play with. It was hard to imagine life without other children around. Ben must have realized her disappointment and added, "I guess it's hard for someone from the big city to realize neighbors are far away." "Yes," she admitted. "I was hoping you'd say that you and your wife had children, Mr. Haskell." His eyes opened wide and they stared at the ground, blushing, and shifted from one foot to the other. "Nah," he said. "Never been married. I live alone." "Farley's chosen to be a bachelor," Ben said amicably, clapping a hand on Haskell's shoulder. But Megan caught a sudden secretive spark in Mr. Haskell's eyes before he turned around. What was he hiding, she wondered. The two men began talking about things pertaining to the farm, so Megan ran back to the house. Emma was busily attacking the wooden floor with her broom. "Gone 4 days and the dust is an inch thick," she said. Megan hadn't noticed the dust, but she was good at sweeping. She'd done it for Ma. "Let me do it for you," she said. Emma kept a firm grip on the broom and smiled. "I'm just letting the house know I'm back," she said. I've been doing this for myself because it makes me feel that I'm at home again and comfortable at settling in. If doing a chore does all that for you, then maybe it'll do the same for me," Megan said. "Do you have something for me to do so I feel at home?" "Oh, dear little Megan." Emma dropped the broom and enfolded Megan in a hug. Megan, her head nestled against Emma's chest, could hear the calm, steady beat of Emma's heart and feel the thrust of her well-rounded belly against her own body. The belly suddenly gave a little thump and shifted, and Megan stepped back, smiling. "When will the baby come?" she asked. Emma gently patted the protruding curve. "Late December or early January," she said. "Nola told me this child's so active it's bound to be strong and healthy." Megan could still remember when Ma's babies were born. Old Mrs. Gridley, who lived down the hall, always came to help. The first thing she did every time was to shoo the children out of the room. When P, the youngest, was about to be born, Megan had begged to stay, frightened of leaving Ma. Her hair down and soaked with perspiration, Ma seemed to be in some faraway place where she could neither see nor hear her children. But Mrs. Gridley put Megan out of the room, telling her to help Frances watch Mike, Danny, and Peg. Finally, Mrs. Gridley had opened the door to invite them back, informing them they had a beautiful baby brother. Megan had hung on Ma's arm, staring at the tiny round red face and the bundle Ma was holding. "I was afraid," she whispered. Ma reached over to brush a tear from Megan's cheek. "Dear little love, having a baby is part of a woman's life, and it's surely a great waste to be afraid of life. Just look at this fine boy now. Wouldn't you say he was worth it?" Megan pulled herself back to the present and asked Emma, When the time comes, will there be a woman to help you? Yes, Megan, don't worry, she said. There's a grandmother who lives with her family in a sod house about 5 miles from here. She's already promised to come ahead of time and stay with us, so she'll be at hand when the baby's ready. Good, Megan said, and gave a little shiver of relief. Ben stomped his feet on the front step, knocking the dust from his boots. He opened the door. Megan, would you like to come outside again? I'd like to show you the farm. Oh, yes, Megan said. She reached for her coat. Where's Farley? Emma asked. He's planning on staying for supper, isn't he? I invited him, Ben answered, but he was in a hurry to get home. He shook his head. It's funny, but I get the feeling there's something going on that man's mind. What? Emma asked. If I knew, I'd tell you. Ben said with a chuckle. Come on, Megan, ready? Megan eagerly fumbled at the last buttons of her coat and ran to keep up with Ben as he strode toward the barn. Lady waddling alongside, the large doors were shut, so Megan followed Ben up to the stone step and through the small doorway, and that opened on the high sill. The barn stood empty except for a lean brown rooster who squawked loud complaints, angrily flapping past them. It's Goliath, Ben said. He has the run of the place and thinks he owns it all. Does he live here in the barn? No, he shares the coop behind the barn with some other chickens. Megan had stepped aside to give Goliath plenty of room. Does he bite? She asked. Bite? No. Peck? Yes. He might try to frighten you by rushing at you with his wings flapping. Just pick up a stick or something and wave at his face, and yell at him with a voice a little louder than his own. He'll turn and run, the coward he is. Megan smiled. I don't know much about any kind of animal, she said. That's a good place to learn, Ben told her. He pointed out some of the pieces of equipment in the barn and led her through the wide door to the far end that opened in the corral. Oh, Megan said, there's Jay and Jimbo. The horses were busy eating at the trough, and as she watched them, a shadow suddenly fell across her shoulders, and Megan turned to see a monstrous, hairy face with 2 horns. His gigantic eyes and snuffling nose were just a few inches from her own. Megan screamed and stumbled backward, tripping and landing with a thump on the ground. The face, which belonged to some kind of large animal, followed her down, huge eyes staring, and Megan screamed again. Lady ran between the animal and Megan, barking furiously. Ben grabbed one of the animal's horns and tugged it away. The animal backed and turned nonchalantly, swaying the opposite side of the corral, and Ben lifted Megan to her feet. That's just Rosie, our cow, he said. She won't hurt you. Megan, embarrassed to try to brush off her skirt. A cow, is it? I saw cows from the train, but none as huge as that. They'd be the size of Rosie if you saw them up close, Ben said. Rosie's a gentle soul. She's just curious, too curious for her own good. Ben laughed. Before long, you'll take Rosie for granted. Tomorrow, if you'd like, I'll teach you to milk her. Megan studied Rosie for a moment with a nod. I'd like that, if Rosie won't mind. Well, we won't bother to ask her, Ben said. It's just to tell Rosie what to do. Best just to tell Rosie what to do so she won't think she has more say-so than a cow ought to have. Lady rubbed against Megan's leg, and Megan stooped and scratched her ears and under the chin. Thank you for protecting me, Megan murmured. Lady looked at her with such devotion that Megan had to hug her, rubbing her chin against the top of Lady's head. Lady will want to come with us when we walk to the river, Ben said, so Megan hopped up and followed him from the corral. As Ben had said, Lady was right at their heels. Not far from the privy was a mound of earth high enough to have a door and one window in it. What's that? Megan asked. A root cellar now, Ben said. A place to store the potatoes and vegetables in winter. A place to go for safety from tornadoes in the spring. Ben glanced down at her. Before she could ask, he explained. Big windstorms. When a tornado comes, the safest place to go is underground. By the time a tornado season gets here, you'll know all what to do if you see a tornado coming. Megan shook her head. I don't want to see a tornado, she said. No one does, but they're a fact of life out here. Do you build the root cellar to get away from the tornadoes or to store food? We built it as a place to live, Ben said. That was our home when Emma and I first claimed the land. You lived underground, Megan shuddered. Oh, it wasn't that bad, Ben smiled at Megan's embarrassment. Many of the folks who come here live in dugouts till they prosper enough to build a sod house or a log house like ours. As they passed a small garden at the back of the house, Ben pointed out a few squash and pumpkins half hidden in the wide-leafed, scraggly vines. The last of the fall vegetables, he said. In the early spring, we'll dig the ground and plant row after row of new vegetables. He swung his left arm in an arc indicating the surrounding land. And someday, he said, this will be planted with wheat. I know it's good land for wheat, and there's farmers in the east who have been successful with it. Then why don't you grow wheat now? Well, wheat needs water to nourish it, and these last few years have been dry. Seed costs money. It takes time and care as well as enough land to make the seed grow. I was able to bring water to my cornfield, but so far I haven't thought of a way to carry enough water to the prairie to make it bloom. Ben felt silent for a while. Megan strode after him. The soft stalks of the tall grass whipped her dress, and the dusty fragrance prickled her nostrils. She plucked a tip off one of the grasses, its already browning buds purple and red and deep gold, and tickled it against her chin. Wouldn't little Peg and Petey love to play in the grass, which was tall enough to hide in? She could almost see them racing past her, laughing and shrieking, I take you, no, you're it. Ben was stopped short, and Megan broke quickly from her daydream. They were standing on a low bluff, looking down at what remained of the cornfield, dried stalks gathered in piles. Beyond the cornfield was a narrow stream that trickled down to the center of scooped-out rocky bed. And on the bank of the river were clusters of the pale golden trees Megan had seen from her window. In many places their gnarled roots rose from the rocks, stretching wide. These trees look as if they're reaching for water, Megan said. That's exactly what they're doing, Ben answered. And as you can see, the land won't support many trees. That's why so many people live in sod houses, like Farley Haskell. He pointed to the spot across the river. Megan couldn't see Mr. Haskell's house until a ray of sunlight reflected off the single window by the front door. The house had been cut in a bluff overlooking the riverbank, and the only part that looked like a house was a wooden front, about 8 feet wide at most, she guessed. Built into the house front was a wooden door with a string attached, hanging out of the latch. He lives in the ground, just like you did, Megan said in wonder. You'll see the inside when we visit Farley someday, Ben said. The rooms are large enough, but they're dark, and snakes and rats like to sneak out in the heat when they get a chance. When Farley made his farm more successful, he'll be eager to build a real house out of logs like we have. He lives all by himself, Megan said. He must be lonely. Farley's never said so, but I suppose he might be, Ben answered. He comes to our place now and then, and Emma often makes him bread from the oven or fresh vegetables. But even though his house is mostly made of dirt, it looks very tidy on the outside, Megan said. I like the bush with the bright yellow flowers that's growing next to the front door. Goldenrod, Ben spoke absentmindedly, rubbing his chin. I knew something looked different. That's a goldenrod. It's been planted recently, and you're right, the yard has been cleared. Mr. Haskell lives very close to the river. Too close, Ben said. I warned Farley about the mosquitoes, but he'd settled on the spot even before we arrived. It was his home. He wasn't about to change it. He said he'd had one bout of fever. He wasn't likely to have another, although there is the danger. Megan studied the small, almost hidden spot in the earth and asked, if Mr. Haskell's in danger, to my way of thinking, it would be from pure loneliness.